All right, here we are. Hope you're in the right room. We're going to be linking the circular economy to biodiversity. Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Edgerton, Director of Circular Economy at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. I'll be moderating the session today, but we have some very interesting speakers from different geographies and different industries to share their thoughts on this exact link between circular economy and biodiversity. We've heard over the last day and a half quite a bit about circular economy bringing into the conversation. And for the most part, it's been referred to really as a tool of how we as society or as business can drive and achieve our sustainability objectives, whether that's healthy ecosystems, whether that's climate change, resource scarcity, that we understand that circular economy really is a tool that can help us get there as opposed to the end goal itself. So recognizing that we are short of time already, and I want to make sure that each of our speakers have time to cover not only their presentations, but hopefully a little Q&A after. I will immediately pass it on to Raquel Canales, the project manager within the Circular Economy Cluster at Forética, global network partner of WBCSD.
So thank you very much, Brendan. So hello, everybody. I would like to thank you all for being here today and take the time to listen. My name is Raquel. I work at Forética, and I am part of the Forética Circular Economy team. Forética is the Spanish World Business Council partner, and is the leading business network here in Spain. So our mission is to encourage the integration of social, environmental, and good governance aspect in their business strategies. So this is the agenda that I will talk about in my presentation. As you can see, there are 5 main points to discuss. First of all, the concept of natural capital, followed by the impact data, then the difference between the linear and circular economy. And at the end, I would like to finish by talking about the link between biodiversity and the circular economy. And I would like to explain to you how we address these issues in Forética and how we work with the member companies. So first of all, I think that it's important to make a brief mention about what natural capital is. As you all know, natural capital is a concept which refers all the renewable and non-renewable resources that come from the earth, and which are combined to provide a flow of benefits for people. So I think that it's also important to mention the term biodiversity, which is a fundamental component related to natural capital, because it has an influence in every product or service that we value, as well as having value in itself. So to summarize the different graphical elements of this slide, we can see how companies and ecosystems are mutually dependent. This means that all the companies depend on ecosystem and their resources, but of course, they also produce a negative impact on ecosystems and the resources in terms of waste production or emissions. So global data regarding natural capital and biodiversity shows that it's necessary to change our current trends. There are a lot of negative impacts on natural capital and biodiversity because of our behavior, such as species extinction or the decrease of ecological communities. So as we can see here, there will be a negative impact on the achievement of the SDGs if we continue with our current biodiversity trends. But of course, the impact on natural capital and biodiversity is also related to resource consumption and waste production. As we can see in the image, this graph shows the reduction of natural resources over a period of approximately 50 years, as well as estimates for the future. It's clear that since the end of the Industrial Revolution, there has been a negative trend on the extraction of raw materials, which has increased by 3 times the amount during this period. As you all know, our production and consumption models are unsustainable, and it's necessary to make a change to our linear models. Today, there are a lot of shocking data like this about limited resources and the problematic fact that economic development and consumption of raw materials are linked. But of course, the risk of the linear economic models is not only associated with the scarcity of resources, but also with a growing production of waste that pollutes our ecosystem. According to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, by 2050, there will be more plastics in the ocean than fish. So an innovative model is necessary to reduce the production of waste as much as possible. So the linear economic model is no longer sustainable in the long term for our societies and for our planet. This model must be replaced by another that ensures sustainable development and using natural resources in a way which is more beneficial and less costly for the environment. So, without a doubt, the global population will need more and more resources. All the problems we have seen can be solved through the circular economy model. So what are the key ideas of this model? I would like to focus your attention on two of these. The value of products, materials, and resources remains in the economy as low as possible, and waste production is reduced. And this can be achieved through the different stages of the circular economy, as we can see here. And what about the difference? There are a lot of risks regarding circular economic model, as well as many opportunities for company in relation to the circular economy model. Both risks and opportunities apply to companies, the global population, and of course, the natural capital and biodiversity. Here we can see some examples about risk, for example, price volatility or waste production, as well as many opportunities such as natural capital conservation or the mitigation of climate change. So the question, what is the link between biodiversity and the circular economy? As we have seen throughout the presentation, biodiversity and the circular economy are highly interconnected. If we analyze all the product process, we can check how each of these processes influences natural capital. The current slide shows the link between the circular economy and biodiversity. And as we can see, green indicating a high connection and red indicating a low connection. So first of all, the use of raw materials has a high link with biodiversity, because without a doubt is the engine of any economy and is the main service provider to society. So the circular economy promotes a responsible and efficient use of natural resources. Then the circular economy promotes the use of sustainability criteria in product design, such as more durable or innovative products and materials, as well as greater energy efficiency and recyclability. Then to promote the conservation of natural capital in the manufacturing process, the circular economy promotes greater efficiency in the different process, as well as reducing the waste production. About transport and distribution have an essential role in the economy, and the main impact on natural capital and biodiversity is carbon emissions. So optimizing transport routes is presented as the answer to this challenge. If we continue in all the different stages of the product process, buying decisions made by consumers can influence more or less directly to natural capital and biodiversity. So promoting knowledge of sustainability habits and responsible consumption is very important. And how to manage waste efficiently is one of the main aspects related to the circular economy. Waste has significant environmental impacts and produce significant economic losses when not properly managed. So use waste as resource is an excellent way to reduce the impact on environment and, of course, on natural capital and biodiversity. So I think that this is a good picture to see how all the different stages of the product process are connected, and how and what is the link about biodiversity and the circular economy. So what are we doing at Forética? The analysis of everything we have discussed resulted in the creation of the Circular Economy Business Action Group, the only business group in Spain about circular economy. This group was launched by Forética in 2017, joining 9 large companies with the ambition of creating an environment where corporate leaders can meet and exchange ideas. In the second edition of this group, the group is composed of 11 companies, all of them convinced of the benefits of this new model and with the ambition of understand the challenges and opportunities for the circular economy. Here you can see the last year member companies, and you can also see 2 documents presented over the last 2 years. First is about the business case of the circular economy, and second is about metrics. And you can also see the photos about our circular economy business forum. And this group works with 3 main targets: to promoting collaboration and between relevant stakeholders, and generate knowledge, and at the end, promoting communication and visibility for these companies. And in addition, in Forética, we have been working for a long time on biodiversity and its links with the circular economy and, of course, with climate change. So that's the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you all for being here and taking the time to listen. Everything we have seen can be found on our website, as you can see here, especially our projects about biodiversity, circular economy, and of course, climate change. If anybody has questions or would like further information, please feel free to contact me at the address you can see on the screen. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Raquel. Okay. We're doing good on time. That was 9 minutes. Well done. Okay. We're going to keep it going here so we can hopefully have some time for discussion afterwards. So, as Eva, our MC for the event, and Peter were talking about yesterday, we released a document called the CEO Guide to the Circular Bioeconomy. And we chose this event to do it because it was the perfect opportunity to make this connection between circular economy and the nature agenda, biodiversity, of course, included. So, just a quick background, WBCSD. We are a CEO-led, member-driven organization, around 200 companies committed to a world in which 9 billion people live well within the means of the planet. We operate with those companies around 6 different programs, which you see on the right-hand side. Circular economy is one of those 6. Within circular economy, our flagship project is Factor 10. And that's what you see on the right-hand side. Factor 10 includes 6 different work streams, working on anything from metrics, which you'll see more and more coming out from us in the coming months, policy or sector deep dives, one of which is including bioeconomy, which is how we got here today. These are the 40 companies across 15 industries in 18 countries that we work with, a very wide range of perspectives to capture, but it really creates a very interesting discussion and valuable outputs as a result. This CEO guide is no exception. So as I mentioned, this was published yesterday. It's available on our website. You could actually access it directly by pulling out your camera and pulling it up with that QR code. What we wanted to do with this document was to begin consolidating the narrative of what bioeconomy means for business. In particular, start shaping the conversation that moving to a bioeconomy is not exactly the message that we should be putting out there. It's important for us to move to a circular, low-carbon, sustainable bioeconomy, recognizing that there are going to be some trade-offs in the short term, that there may be some challenges and or unintended consequences in moving too quick or not doing it properly. So be very careful about what we're trying to encourage business to do. But these leading businesses up here, these 15 CEOs, including Clariant, helped us develop this document, and from their perspective, obviously many different industries represented in here, begin to shape what a circular bioeconomy is going to look like. So we started with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's butterfly diagram. We took some other bioeconomy models that were out there, but recognizing that this is a CEO guide, we really had to simplify this as much as possible and make it as straightforward as we could. And so what this depicts is the three main industrial inputs, talking about agriculture, forestry, and aquatic systems, providing the biomass that feeds into. Those are sustainably managed and harvested, put into the system via processing, turned into food and feed, and or products, and or energy. And those three main streams are a way for us to kind of think about how this biomass is flowing through the economy, and even flowing through the economy multiple times. So after the use phase of that, the idea is that you're able to, whenever possible, you have cascading uses such as with wood or water, and using it for the next best high value opportunity. It's collected, recycled, reprocessed, put back into the system. If it cannot be put back into the system, composted and captured, at least to make sure those nutrients are still in play. On the bottom here, you see WBCSD's programs of how they kind of fit across here. Forest Solutions Group, Fresh, our food program, Climate Smart Agriculture, Food Loss and Waste, all of this plays into more of the left side, and then our Factor 10 program along the right. So what I was speaking to before of how this biomass flows through the economy, from the agriculture, forestry, aquatic, you see most of it is coming from the agricultural sector, and most of it is winding up in food and feed. And when we measure this, we're actually measuring food loss and waste. So when we talk about the circular bioeconomy, it's not taking primary crops and putting them into energy. It's looking at how do we take the food that is lost along the supply chain or after consumption or at consumption and pulled back into the economy. But you can see through food and feed, products and energy, the range of industries that are part of this conversation, that typically when we think about bioeconomy, it is those three industries that probably first come to mind, but really every industry has a part to play in this. And so what we wanted to do was understand, well, how much? And so we calculated, I'll say this was done with a tremendous amount of support from BCG, and calculated that the circular bioeconomy is estimated to be a $7.7 trillion opportunity by 2030. Bigger than just the circular economy has been estimated, but the bioeconomy is a massive concept right now. Bioeconomy is about 15% of global GDP today. We estimate circular bioeconomy specifically is about 7% of today's global GDP, and we estimate that will double by 2030. But you can see the range of industries and parts of value chains that will have this opportunity to capture, in many cases, billions of dollars will be available in the market of who can move there. But that's great at a macro level, but what does that mean for an individual company? How do they capture part of that 7.7 trillion? And that could be one of these three different business cases. So the first is entering new markets and customer segments, that we're seeing that demand for bio-based products, sustainable products, circular products is growing. This is one way to meet that. Mitigating regulatory and societal risks, so anticipating where society is going and or regulations are going and trying to get out in front of that. And ultimately providing a competitive advantage that companies are beginning to see that they have stronger relationships with not only their customers but also their employees, as they see that they're putting their resources and committing their strategy, and not just sustainability strategy, but business strategy, and moving towards a sustainable direction. So the connection with biodiversity, with the nature agenda, when we looked at it, we thought the circular bioeconomy really helps us as society and as business address 5 major environmental priorities. course, one of the first ones that come to mind, resource scarcity when you're talking about circular economy, maybe food loss and waste, and the massive opportunity in addressing that. Thinking more about it, there's significant climate change, land use, and biodiversity impacts in moving in this direction. And this is, again, where it's important that we caveat that it's not just bioeconomy, it's circular bioeconomy that we're pushing, because we want it to be sustainably managed. We want those resources, once they're pulled into the economy, to be used as much as possible, as effectively as possible, and not just promoting, more and more agriculture, more and more forestry. That's not necessarily what is called for here, but more effective use of the resources that we pull. There it is. So why aren't we moving quickly? Without getting into too much detail, broadly there's 4 different barriers that companies have observed in inhibiting their progress towards it. So one could be about cost, and this could be anything from commodities to the final products down the line being more expensive than the conventional, technology and processing some of the resources to turn them into products. Policy, this is a growing area. In particular, policy and the regulators have been quite proactive in this. However, as a result, there's over 50 bioeconomy policies at a national level today, each with their own definition and scope. That itself creates a challenge. And lastly, around perception. We're still trying, as with recycled content in some cases, still trying to change the conversation that, bio-based alternative, you're not sacrificing quality when that's used. So there's some perception issues that we need to address as well. And so how to get started? Identifying an action point. We showed the different industries. If you go into the guide, you'll see much more detail about what companies are doing. There's a number of great examples from the companies that participated. Take a look at that, and there are insights of what can be done around procurement, what can be done around design, around innovation and business models that can help you think what's most material for me. The evaluating sustainability trade-offs, as I mentioned, circular bioeconomy, low carbon, sustainable bioeconomy. That's what we want to be pushing, not just bioeconomy. It's going to be important, as with circular economy in general. As we heard many times, it's necessary to collaborate. The main message here is you're going to probably be collaborating with people you've never worked with before. And this could be, one example is a fertilizer company working with a waste management or wastewater company to source nutrients from that wastewater as opposed to virgin mining. So those types of new collaborations are going to be called for. And then, of course, starting small in scale. All right. So with that, I'll hand it over to Andrea Weigel from Clariant, the Corporate Sustainability Manager.
Thank you, Brandon, and also Raquel for actually preparing the floor for me already. You gave all the background, and I actually now can really focus on sustainable solutions for circular economy. And I really want to give you examples in terms of products that we're offering. To start with, some of you might actually not know Clariant. We are a specialty chemicals company, currently still having 6 billion, but in the near future, due to the investment going to 4 billion sales. We are globally operating more than 50 countries, still having almost 18,000 employees. And we have a very diverse portfolio that can range from products that go into your shampoo, into your home cleaning products, to plastics, catalysts for making production of petrochemicals more efficient, functional minerals that, for example, purify oil, or all kinds of products. So it's really also a diverse touch point that we have with circularity and also natural capital, biodiversity. And our efforts in the area are based on a history of sustainability performance that is based on commitments, targets, and also externally recognized, for example, due to our DJSI listing. Having said that, let me give you some principles. We actually believe that Clariant and business can grow through a sustainable circular bioeconomy. But that only works if we actually take into account sustainability aspects, the impacts and dependencies that we have with nature. Otherwise, this will not work. And also what is very important, what we have experienced, we need to communicate appropriately with our customers, with stakeholders, in order to avoid misperceptions. So let me give you some examples how we actually used bio-based ingredients, raw materials, and with a focus on residues on byproducts. That's why we're talking actually a circular economy. One of the examples is a process sunliquid technology that is focusing on second-generation biofuels production. We are using straw, agricultural waste for the production of bioethanol and cellulosic sugars. And as you just have said, actually, it's about new collaborations. I can tell you, it's a totally new beast to suddenly work with farmers, actually, and with these kind of raw materials in comparison to petrochemical-based raw materials. So you really need to find new ways of dealing with certain issues and also with partners and new partners. Another example, again, a product that is based on a byproduct, in this case, from the rice oil production, Lycocare, rice bran waxes, Vita. They are used in the plastics production for lubrication and dispersing, making the process more efficient. And again, it is a byproduct. It's not something that is specifically produced only for the purpose of this material. And I also want to highlight what I have put here, Ecotane. You might not know it. It is our sustainability excellence label through which we actually try to communicate with customers and stakeholders. I'm coming back in a few moments how we use this tool for steering towards a sustainable and circular bioeconomy. And both of these product examples that I give you here are actually Ecotane products and Ecotane labeled. Another example is about communication, again, with customers and stakeholders like Ecotane. We're having now just recently launched a new portfolio denominator, which we call Terra. And this is focusing on products that are renewable-based, but based on a mass balance approach. So we're actually dealing with very long value chains, production chains. And in some of these, you can actually not, because the products are mixed so many times, you cannot find back the original renewable-based ingredient. That's why we're using a mass balance approach to show that we actually have used in the origin such bio-based material. And also here, we're lucky enough to actually have found a partner who can offer us raw material, bio-based raw material that is based to 80% on waste products. And last but not least, the example focus on dependencies, I would say. We are already very well placed in the personal care market. But our aim is actually to become a leader in natural ingredients for personal care, cosmetic products. And this we can only achieve if we actually take care how and from where we source our products. Because actually if we deplete them, there is no ways we actually ever become a leader. You cannot lead and you cannot make money if there is no nature, specifically in this area. And how are we doing that? For example, we're working together with a leader in sustainable and ethical sourcing in Brazil, Beraca, for example. And sometimes you also see it's actually small steps. RSPO, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil. You might know it, it's often criticized, but at least it's a step into the right direction. We're also doing traceability on palm-based products. But just to show you also the complexity that we're dealing with, we're actually not using palm oil. We're using palm kernel derivatives. So that's actually the part in the interior of the palm that is then processed and processed and processed. And then actually, if we want to fully control how things are cultivated, we really need to go back a lot of steps in the value chain, and we really need to collaborate and with many partners. And it is a big effort behind, but we're working on it and we're progressing. So having given these examples, just also, I think you need to have processes and targets in place to actually steer and also control how you move towards more sustainability, more circularity. And we are using on all our products and our innovation projects, we're using a tool, the Clariant Portfolio Value Program, a sustainability evaluation scheme with 36 criteria, where we already started in 2015. We had included indicators on biodiversity and circularity. So already then we knew the two things come together. And also just to, how should I say, encourage. Obviously it is complex, 36 criteria, but it's actually a qualitative tool, and the ones that are evaluating need to put arguments behind. So it's still a strict tool, but it's actually doable. So, and we all are forced to consider this kind of aspects when we develop new products and when we think about product improvements. And that's how we actually steer our portfolio at the end of the day, to enhance biodiversity performance, less impact on nature, and also best-in-class sustainability performance. And that's where Ecotane comes in. Ecotane is the label that is actually for our products, that in these 36 criteria show really best-in-class performance in comparison to the direct competing products in the market, and also show no detrimental impacts. So really do a full analysis there. And I also talk targets. We have targets on the portfolio that needs to be screened, on the large innovation projects. And I don't want to ignore it. We also have targets on our operations, on our operational footprint, water, waste, energy, CO2, just also to steer this kind of impacts that we're having and interactions, because at the end of the day, they also influence the performance of our products. And with that, I want to include, I really think there's opportunity for business, and especially for us as the chemical industry, as a solution provider in the sustainable circular bioeconomy. And all this is not possible, I hope I have made that clear, if we don't take nature into account, and if we don't look into the dependencies and the impacts that we're having. Only then we can be successful in the long and or in the medium and even in the short term. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay, then we have one more speaker, and then we'll have a chance for a quick round of questions here. So I'd like to welcome Eduardo Fernández Rodriguez, Environmental and Sustainability Department of Naturgy. Good preparation. Oh, look at that, they fixed the name. Look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, hello everyone. Yeah, my name is Eduardo Fernández. I work at Naturgy in the Corporate Environmental and Sustainability Department. In fact, today I'm here, but the one who has to be here was Nieves Cifuentes. She is the current leader of the department and the leader of these issues within Naturgy. So it's a pity she couldn't make it today, but well, that's life. So first, well, my presentation is, or her presentation, is going to be focused in two points. The first one is how we integrate, or we try to integrate circular economy and biodiversity and natural capital. And the second point is what we think is a successful or success story in an interesting project of restoration, open pit, a coal open pit in the northwest of Spain, and we transform that open pit in a lake, in an artificial lake, in a freshwater reservoir. So to start with, very little brief about our company. Well, Naturgy, it's one of the largest vertically integrated companies, gas and electricity, in Spain and in Latin America. We are in more than, well, in 30 countries, 18 million customers around the world and more than 12,000 employees around the world. Well, we are in Naturgy in a thrilling moment right now because we are changing our business, and we have a plan to do that. We have a strategic plan that will take from 2018 to 2022, sorry. And our main purpose in that plan is to change, first of all, we are going to change our the way we produce energy, electricity. We used to have coal and gas. We'll keep the gas, but we are going to close the coal thermal plants. Next year will be the last year that we have those plants operating in Spain. So for us, it's very important. And we are going to try to substitute this power generation with renewable energy, mainly solar and wind energy. So for us, it's very important. And then we'll see the impacts on the resource consumption and the generation of waste, what we are talking about today about a circular economy. And the other point is very important too. We also have and operate electricity networks and gas networks, and we are trying to balance. Today, the gas networks contributes the most to our EBITDA, but we are trying to balance these two businesses in order to increase the electricity business, the electricity distribution and transportation business. And with the gas, we also have a plan in order to switch steadily from the fossil origin of the natural gas to a renewable origin with a biomethane in the medium or in the short or in the medium term, and then hydrogen in the long run. So that's the moment we are now, and it's very, very, very thrilling and very interesting. And within that moment, we have a brand new environmental global policy. There are four pillars in that environmental policy: climate change and energy transition. As you may imagine, it's very important. Natural capital and biodiversity, circular economy and eco-efficiency, and one transversal to all those three is governance and environmental management. So I've been talking before about we're going to close our coal plants, and what does it mean for us? It means that we are going to pollute less, we are going to use less resources, and we are going to substitute that for clean energy. So for us, clean energy, it's somehow circular energy. And also the other issue that I've been talking before was the production of biomethane and biogas and biomethane. For those who maybe are not familiar with that concept, but for those who are from abroad, from Europe, yeah, it's more common. But here in Spain, it's somehow it's starting to be known. So biogas or biomethane is we use organic waste from cities, from agricultural processes, from industries, and we produce with that waste, we produce biomethane. That is a natural gas, but the origin is from that waste, so it's a renewable origin, and that biomethane is a climate-friendly fuel. So I mean, since it has a bio-origin, its emissions tend to be compensated with the CO2 removes at the beginning of the process. So those are the main drivers that we have nowadays, and that we link with a circular economy, especially with the biomethane. And that's about that's all about our company and our policy. And then what we have here is what we think is a successful story. It's about an open pit that it was placed nearby a coal plant in the northwest of Spain, and the open pit started its production in 1980, and then in 2008 it stopped because we switched the kind of fuel that we use. We started to use an international coal, not from Galicia anymore. And we decided to restore. We have several projects in order to restore the open pit, and we decided to restore it into a freshwater reservoir. So what we have here is the project. First of all, we start with sealing the bottom of the pit with clay, and we decided to, well, and after that we control the flooded in order to fuel the, well, to, how do you say, well, to yeah, in order to fill the open pit with fresh water, controlling the water quality and many aspects. And after that, what we had was one of the biggest artificial water, natural water reservoirs from an open pit in Europe. And well, I think the figures are in the next slide. Yes. So well, and the water supply for 400,000 people in the northwest of Spain. And we also create a new ecosystem with 1,000 acres, with we planted more than 450,000 trees, and 830 animal and plant species, new species were introduced. So we created a new ecosystem. Besides, we are providing fresh water to more than 400,000 people. So we think that's a good example because, first of all, we recycle an industrial facility, an open pit, in a natural space, and we also create a new natural space that it's very good for the biodiversity, but also is good for people in order to enjoy and to have fun in this new area. What we have here are some figures that we, in collaboration with the University of Santiago de Compostela, we calculate the amount of money. Well, we calculate the value of the ecosystems, of the services that we are providing, but only the water supply and only the economic and tourist development. As you can see, well, the trade-offs are very important. We invest only 60 million euros in the restoration, and the report says that more than 800 million euros were provided in ecosystem services thanks to this project. And so, for us, main conclusions would be that circular economy boosts biodiversity in an integrated framework. Natural capital is a key tool to quantify the economic value of environmental resources, and evaluate and quantify ecosystem services is essential for adequate decision making. That's a very important point, at least in a business background, for strategic and environmental management, and also facilitates negotiation and communication with relevant stakeholders. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. All right, I have some questions that I can ask the panelists. Actually, if I could ask Eduardo, please stay up here, and I'll invite Andrea and Raquel to join. I have some questions I can ask them, but they just shared a lot of information with you guys, and I wanted to make sure before getting into that, that you don't have any questions that you would like answered from any of the speakers. Okay, you guys are very clear. Do you guys have, oh, here we go. There we go, thank you. Excuse me, maybe Eduardo, I'll start with you actually, because the first question is around this connection between circular economy, biodiversity, and natural capital. And there was an element, you kind of touched on all of those through your talk there. The 60 million euro investment, how was that case made to your company in order to convince them to make that investment?
Well, yes. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Sorry, but
was there an element of circular economy, or was there an element of natural capital
it was
that fed into
long
that?
time ago. It was a long time ago, and what I know is that they have different kind of projects, and they decided this one, and maybe well, the freshwater reservoir was the key issue that pushed them, because well, the region needed that reservoir, and it was a very nice infrastructure for them. So I understand that there was an external demand in order to do that project. But then what we did was that reservoir, but also all the plant and the restoration and the new species that there were there. So what we did, what we found is a very nice opportunity in order to eventually build up a very nice project.
Okay.
It's my
So. Makes sense. No, fair enough. Andrea, you provided some examples of what Clariant is doing with creating new products that are grounded in bioeconomy, circular bioeconomy. How does Clariant embed that thinking into the R&D process so that those types of ideas come about of how do we source or create this new product that is from a source that we've never used before or from a partner that we haven't used before? How do those relationships come about? How does R&D actually approach that?
So, I mean, we have obviously a new business development that is looking into new areas, and actually we even had a structured process that started a few years ago, where we looked into mega trends and even at regional level, and we really started brainstorming with specific colleagues in a group exercise in order to kick off new ideas in a specific area. And we also have a major project in the area of circularity, EcoCircle, where we bundle expertise across our different business units who do not always collaborate, but where we bring together ideas, and all this feeds back into the innovation process. And bioeconomy is actually one of the key innovation fields in our business. So there are various ideas that are fed back regularly. And then in addition, we actually have this steering process, as I described before, the portfolio value program, that minimum for the major innovation projects, but also for others, looks really into this specific 36 criteria already early in the process, in order to ensure that the things go into the right direction, and in case there is a need to take corrective actions, that is actually possible.
Great, thank you. We'll pass it down to Raquel. We've also discussed the circular economy as being a way to achieve some of these biodiversity or nature targets. Flipping that around a bit, how can nature-based solutions be used to drive circular thinking or circular economy itself?
Okay, thank you. So, as I mentioned during my presentation, the circular economy and biodiversity are highly interconnected as are nature solutions to circular models. So from the use of raw materials to waste production itself, the circular economy promotes the conservation and improvement of natural capital. And for example, the responsible use of water or raw materials as well as the responsible supply chain management are fundamental elements in the consideration of biodiversity at the business level. So I think that the only way to achieve this is through the circular economy. So nature solutions are highly interconnected to nature circular solutions.
Very good, thank you. All right, I want to provide, oh, there we go. I knew they were out there. Let's see, I'll just carry my mic here. Start right here.
Thank you. My name is Alvine Wojcik. I have a question to the whole panel. Thinking about opportunities in the framework of the social dimension, what is the relationship between circular economy and job creation? Because in general, I think there isn't a mention to this aspect. Thank you.
Anyone want to jump at that first?
No, it's okay. I mean, I think for me to be straightforward, yes, and you have put it up. I mean, it's a 7.7 billion business opportunity.
Trillion.
Sorry, yes, three zeros left out. And I mean, why should that be jobless? I don't see the reason for it. And I mean, also specifically the bio-based circular economy. I mean, bio-based cultivation. That is normally actually more on the labor-intensive side. And it also goes towards more automatization. So, but I would not be afraid. Wherever there is actually growth, there are jobs.
Yeah, I agree completely. And specifically in Naturgy's case with biogas, that's in fact one of the strong points in when we are going to see the governments or going to see the businesses in order to explain, because there is a very good opportunity to develop a new industry in places where, at least in Spain, we are the population is stagnating or maybe decreasing, and the economy is being driven to the cities. So for us, it's a very important, it's a very interesting option in order to address a problem, economic problem and population problem in rural areas, and to provide them with a new activity, economic activity, and it's completely linked to the circular economy in this case. So,
perfect. Did you want to go, Raquel?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities for business by moving towards the circular economy. And probably which can be classified into different aspects. The acceleration of business growth by reducing operating costs on promoting innovation in new products and services, and the improvement of competitiveness and standing out from the competition, of course. And I think that the best important opportunity is risk management and how companies can manage the problems related to the natural capital and biodiversity.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we're going to sadly move on, but everyone will be available right after.
Hello, it is not a question, but I am Pilar Gegunde from Lafarge Holcim, and I think we have another link between economy, circular economy and biodiversity, because as the first step is extraction of raw materials, the key is to leave the space where we are extracting these raw materials in best conditions for biodiversity than previous. We open the quarry. So this one aspect that we should consider in the circular economy also.
That's a great point. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm under Jerome's watch to make sure that I quickly move on to the next one. I know there's more questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone. They are very interesting, but hopefully you'll be able to find them right after. If we could get a round of applause for our panelists, and thank you for your presentations. Okay, and with that, I'd like to invite Andrea Schryver from the environmental footprint team at DG Environment to wrap things up from her perspective.
Thank you very much.
I've been listening with interest to this session, and indeed I was asked to give a few words of wrapping up at the end, so I wrote a few notes. First of all, I would like to recap the goal of this session. So the goal of this session was to identify learnings and the needs to further integrate biodiversity and circular economy. And especially if we listen back to the speech of my director of DG Environment this morning, who was talking about the European Green Deal, there is also a very strong link to circular economy and biodiversity. There, in the Green Deal, there is a new announcement of a new strategy on biodiversity, but also a stronger request for circular economy. And so when I listen to the presentations, I think it was the first one that already mentioned circular economy and biodiversity are already very much interlinked. With all activities that are done under circular economy, like reducing waste, shifting from fossil fuels to clean energy, or reducing carbon emissions, they all have a direct impact on reducing biodiversity. So companies already do integrate circular activities. They measure, they evaluate, but also here they measure very often in a qualitative way. And also, I hear there are definitely quite some barriers. 2 barriers I noticed and I noted down. One is the costs. And the costs is indeed a big barrier, and this is something we have to overcome. It's also part of the circle of the Green Deal, where there is a request for a strategy for green finance, because Ursula, the new president, really noticed that, put attention to that we need sustainable finance really at the heart of our investments. And the second thing is policy. And indeed, this will be one of the, from my perspective, one of the big challenges also in the Green Deal is to have a consistent framework. Because the Green Deal touches upon a lot of different things like sustainable agriculture, circular economy, biodiversity action plan, green finance, all things that touch on biodiversity or on environment in general. And we need, through all of those, a consistent framework implemented into that. When I go back to circular economy and biodiversity, for now what we see that where we can improve for the next action plan, we call it internally 2.0, is to implement because environmental footprint is already part of the circular economy, one of the ways to measure, and to implement in there a better indicator that touches on biodiversity. We have today in there 8 indicators which affect biodiversity, like acidification, eutrophication, climate change, all connected to biodiversity, but we don't have one single indicator which allows us to measure in a quantitative way. And also, why do we need to measure in a quantitative way? Is to avoid trade-offs. Trade-offs and shifting to other locations or to other systems. We really need a holistic approach. And I end with that.